Welcome to a new episode of Celle qui suit podcast. Today, I'm very honored to share a deep and heartfelt conversation with Alyah, a woman walking her path with courage, awareness, and truth. In this episode, we talk about personal transformation, the moments in life that shake us, the wounds that open the way to healing, and the importance of woman's space where we feel safe to listen, feel, and transform. We explore what it means to become who we truly are, not despite the pain, but through it. This is a conversation about rebirth, sisterhood, and the sacred journey of becoming. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let yourself be touched by Alyah's story. Et si tu osais enfin écouter la voix qui chuchote en toi depuis si longtemps, celle qui te dit qu'il est temps de ralentir, de te retrouver et de t'aimer. Bienvenue dans le podcast Celle qui suit, un podcast qui t'invite à reprendre ton pouvoir et à te reconnecter à ta véritable essence. Je suis Jenna, thérapeute holistique et exploratrice de l'âme humaine. Depuis plusieurs années, j'accompagne les femmes à travers la guérison des traumas, la reconnexion au corps et la libération des blocages inconscients. Dans ce podcast, je te partage mes réflexions, mes expériences et des outils concrets pour t'aider à revenir à toi tout en douceur. Dans Celle qui suit, on parle d'amour de soi, de régulation du système nerveux, de blessures du passé, mais aussi d'intuition, de mouvement et de tout ce qui peut nous aider à vivre plus alignés et libres, parfois en solo, parfois avec des invités. Je t'invite à un voyage intérieur pour explorer ta vérité, au-delà des injonctions et des croyances limitantes. Alors si tu ressens l'appel de cette reconnexion à toi, abonne-toi au podcast et rejoins-moi chaque semaine pour une nouvelle exploration.
And the room is like a little womb too.
Cool. Hello Alyah, and welcome here in the Celle qui suit podcast. I'm very glad to receive you. First of all, I want to ask you, how do you feel today, Alyah?
I feel excited and I feel really happy to share in your experience today with this project, your podcast. Yeah, I feel really happy to be here.
How would you describe yourself as a woman? Who are you, Alyah?
I think I'm fairly straightforward. I think like all women, I've got a lot of layers, but I don't think that they're complicated. I think I'm someone that I really love my life, and I have a default setting of being very optimistic, and this has kind of been my superpower actually in my life, because I really love life, and I love people, and I feel like the concept that life is a really beautiful, wonderful, magical thing is always very present with me, and it makes getting through more difficult times a little bit easier, and it makes the happier times really, really, really wonderful. And the kind of woman that I am, I'm still becoming her. I think I'm still learning all of those things that make up what I believe a woman to be, which is very exciting. I'm excited about aging, and I'm a bit scared about aging. But the kind of woman that I am is still emerging, I would say. She's loving and she's fun, and she's still cooking. She's still getting created.
You are a woman on her way, we can say?
Yeah.
Do you remember a moment when you felt something was no longer aligned in your life?
Yes. I have a really specific memory in my adult life. You know, I come from a background of many years in advertising and marketing communications. A corporate background, but really a background that encourages a lot of consumerism, and that would have you believe that that buying things and selling things was integral to the human experience. during the first sort of 6 months of COVID in 2020, I started to become really frightened and disillusioned by the way that this system that we had been living in started to crumble, especially the capitalistic outlook on work and everything that we took as absolute kind of Bible of you have to go to work, you have to be in the office, your routine is like a solid routine. These are the hours that you work. This is the paycheck that you take home. This is the way that the system operates. It needs you to be in an office, outputting things, whatever those things are, and then claiming a paycheck and going home. And the real essence of life was it was happening either away from you or in the background, Happiness, weddings, births, deaths, all of this stuff was happening outside of your work life. And there was like a really big gap in between those two things, I felt. Those things happened outside of work, the good and the bad. And then what happened when everybody started working from home and when, whole countries were being shut down, you couldn't access your people, everything was turned to be online. Marketing and advertising, I was in advertising at that particular time, took a massive hit because you need people to move freely in the free market for them to buy things. And one of my clients at the time in this ad agency that I was working at was an airline. And they were preparing for a new product that they wanted to sell. I wrote this pitch and I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is a joke. And I remember writing it, as I was writing it thinking like, I can't do this anymore. This is completely false. This entire industry is false. And I don't mean that as disrespectful to anybody working in advertising. I've been in advertising my entire career. It's really all that I know. And there's a lot of creative, wonderful, beautiful artists and leaders and strategic thinkers that work within advertising and comms, and they're very talented people. But for me, it was just the situation and the pitch just seemed so fucking ridiculous that I realized, like I wrote the pitch because it was my job and I needed to do it, but I just found when I came to have the meeting with my team, I was like, I don't know how we're going to sell this. One, the airports are not open. Everybody was going through a big mental load. But this was the one moment that it's really burned in my mind as I started to, that was my moment of like, okay, we're living in two different worlds. I'm living in a reality that I feel that no one else sees. And I don't think I can go back because the veil has kind of been lifted, or the curtain has been lifted on what I thought the system was. So this moment for me that changed everything. I remember like thinking, it's never going to go back to the way it was inside me. And probably the way that I see reality also will never go back because of this pitch.
What did you felt when you realized that what you were doing in your job was bullshit?
Oh, I like totally liberated. Like so fucking liberated, like laughing almost. I mean, I was scared, but it was almost like a hysterical kind of feeling of the inside. Oh my God, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Oh my God, it's all lies. Everything is lies. Like this, I mean, one of the beautiful things about advertising, for example, is that a lot of it is to do with relationships. Clients can be really difficult, especially in advertising. They want everything yesterday and they want it perfect. There's no room for error. But then you have somebody that's a client services director that comes in, or an account director who comes in and fixes everything with communication. And that was a really good skill that I had. I was very diplomatic, easy for me to speak to people, easy for me to get the point across, to craft the idea before they've seen it and to prepare them for it. And then also to defend my team. They cannot talk shit about my team, never. And also for my team to have their morale to stay boosted. You spend a lot of late nights. You spend a lot of time coming up with some ideas that are shit and some ideas that are great. How to deal with people when they feel really rejected, because this is an artist that presents his work. I mean, whether you think it's just graphic design or just copywriting or just quote unquote this or that, this is art. People are producing, they're creating. And when a client rejects something, there's a personal part inside that artist, because that copywriter is a writer also, and that graphic designer is also somebody that loves art. And that's vulnerability, and that's essence, and that's real. And managing people's expectations, and also helping them understand this quote unquote rejection of their work, and navigating that, helping them communicate to feel empowered by the lesson rather than defeated. That's also like a transferable skill that I realized, like, I'm really, actually, this is the part that I like talking with everyone and making everyone feel good and finding the deeper meaning in everything, you know? And that happened gradually. It wasn't like it built up. That trip to Cuba had a lot to do with it. The travel, I suppose deep down I always knew I wanted something more. And when I say more, I mean I wanted to be in service. But I didn't know how to reach real service. I'm still learning, but I didn't know how to really reach real service. This is something that I see as the way that I identified myself with money. It's something that I'm still unlearning now that I'm self-employed and I have my own business. I understand that money doesn't bring happiness. And actually freedom from, let's say, only material wealth and psychological wealth. They're two different things. They don't necessarily happen at the same time. And if you do that, then you've put in, a great amount of work and a great amount of luck and following your passion, I think, in equal amounts, But that material attachment and the things that came along with the material attachment. Money, money, money. Money, money, money. And I also was a victim in my own life. Everything that happened to me at that time, and I wanted to feel sorry for myself a lot. And the sign probably that I didn't even really know was a sign, because I was so unaware, was exactly this, my blindness to, is this it?
What was the first step toward change for you?
Therapy.
So it was your first...
Look, if I want to go back a couple of steps, I used to organize dance events here. I used to organize weekend dance events. And I used the money from my job to fund them. So I would bring dance teachers from outside of Kuwait to Kuwait, and we would hold these dance workshops. And the dance workshops, they're still running in London now. They are it's not my dance company, it's a wonderful dance company called Heels and Feels, run by who's become a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Sherelle J. She's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman who is super amazing, and really a lot of my belief in myself that I can do bigger sort of events and things like that came from working with her. She was really important for me like that. And it felt real and empowering, and impactful, because not only was it dancing, and the dancing was amazing, but it was what happened afterwards. Yeah, we dance in heels, and it's very sensual and beautiful, and you feel very, very intense, and you feel very wow, very expansive. And then afterwards we talk about how we felt. And there, sitting in a circle, your body is exhausted after dancing, I thought, oh, wow, stories, real women talking about how they feel, and talking about all these things that we're told that we shouldn't be talking about, like our feelings and vulnerability, and feeling sexy, and loving your body, or hating your body, and feeling shy, or feeling powerful, or feeling nervous, and all of these things. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't wait to do it again. So I did those every month for about 2 years. And they stopped during COVID, obviously, but then the last one that we did was like just the week before the country shut down. But I realized in that space that I loved organizing these events. I was very good at leading them. I was very good at creating this safe space for women to feel and speak and grow. But I became kind of addicted to it because I was very much in a lot of pain myself. Because I didn't have that sense of community. I also created that kind of for me. I wanted it, so I made it. I didn't have it. I didn't see it in my community, so I made that community. But I made it really because I didn't have it. And at that time, if everyone didn't cry and I didn't get to cry, then for me it wasn't a success, which is fucking stupid, right? Because not everyone is on the same wavelength. People just want to dance and chat and then leave. And then I realized then that I needed to speak to somebody and that I wasn't okay. And shortly after I made that pitch about that product, the service, the VIP service, I think it was either the same weekend or the next day, I reached out to a therapist that was recommended to me by Sherelle. And she said to me, look, I think the first call is free. That's what she told me. The first call is free. So if you don't like him, I said, okay, what have I got to lose? I called him. I cried for an hour and a half on the phone and I got therapy. I signed up with him the same day. I invested a lot in myself, time, money, energy. And it's been the best investment I ever made in my life. It's changed my life. It's changed my life. Therapy changed my life. You know, to be from two cultures, I think it's very simple and it's also very straightforward. And I think that if there's anybody that's listening that's also half and half, they might also understand what I mean. It makes you a really amazing chameleon because you can adapt to anything. Also, I think like my physical aspect is really ambiguous because I can be from almost anywhere, so that also helps. And you recognize that growing up as well, because people can't tell where you're from. So it becomes it can be a bit annoying, but it can also be quite powerful. I think identity-wise, as a child, I wasn't really aware because you're not aware. And as I grew up, I think I kind of had a little bit of a resistance towards my Kuwaiti culture because it felt stricter. But then also I had resistance to my Scottish culture because, you know, I'm from a very small town where there wasn't a lot of people that sort of looked like me, and I didn't really live there, and I'm very connected to my family there, but it was always like you didn't really fit in, which I struggled with when I was younger, but now that I'm older, it's such a blessing, you know? I think that there is one part of me still that wishes a little bit, only a little bit, and only from time to time, that I was from one place only, because at least then you would have like real roots, you know? And I feel like my roots are growing now within myself and within who I am and within that, within the reality that I create daily for myself. And it's not really attached to culture so much anymore. It's more what I've created from it. And there's just, it's really rich. It is really rich because Scotland is wonderful and Celtic culture is wonderful and Kuwait is great and Arab culture and Arab heritage is really wonderful. And so I love them both. I was young, I was a kid, 5-6 years old when the invasion happened. We call it the invasion, even though I think in the States and in Europe and in Britain, they call it the Gulf War, Desert Storm, right? The Americans love to come up with these movie Hollywood names for things that they do. And with my mum and my brother and my father, and it took us some weeks to leave Kuwait. We went south to the Saudi border. And I think it's really interesting because I think as a country and as a community, I don't think we've entirely put it behind us. It's 30 plus years ago now. And I think that the way, personally, this is what I think, the way that the Desert Storm, the Gulf War, has been played out in the media over the last 30 years is that it was a really nothing war. It was just less than a year. You know, we were saved. It wasn't terrible. You know, something like it was one of the first, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first invasion/war that was filmed live and broadcast live. You know, if you go to 2003, when they invaded Iraq, you know, the camera crews were in the trenches with the guys firing. I remember watching that on Sky News when I was 17. And the Gulf War was the first one to be like, we have live images coming from Kuwait City, or we have from the borders with Iraq, etc., etc. And I think that the way that that's been discussed in TV has really not allowed us to process our pain as a country. Genuinely, I believe that, because you know, now there's a whole generation of kids that don't know the war at all, or don't know the invasion at all. They don't know what we did as this tiny country. It makes me a bit emotional, not what we did as a very small country with a very small population. And how we managed that, families, looking after families, moving from basement to basement. I feel sad that we don't have more recognition, because the way that it's been played out in Western media, it's that it was just nothing, you know. And also nobody documented anything. It was 1990. No one was blogging or live streaming, or Iraqi soldiers coming to our house and they were wearing flip-flops. They don't even have shoes, you know. Young men, I remember, young men with guns and everything, but with flip-flops, and they wanted bread, they wanted food. And of course, other people have different stories of Iraqi soldiers doing terrible things. I mean, I didn't see that, I was also a child, you know. I'm older now than my parents were when that war happened, or when the invasion happened. My parents must have been 31 or 32, and that's babies. They're babies. At 31, you've got 2 kids, and you have to navigate the desert at night time with a foreign wife, who they were actively looking for foreigners, and escape, essentially. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but really that was it. Like, we got to get out. We don't know what's going to happen. That made me later, much later in life, kind of in my own 30s, thinking, wow, my mum and dad are fucking heroes to do that. And that what made me realize, like, wow, everybody is. And that got me thinking as well, like, oh my God, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about all the things. You know, a couple of Ramadans ago, we were sitting around the sofas, you know, in my dad's house with my aunties and my uncles. And for some reason, the television didn't work. Usually after we break the fast on Ramadan, then we watch TV and drink tea and eat sweets. And the television didn't work, so we had to talk to each other. And somebody said, oh, this reminds me of when the TVs and the electricity went off during the invasion. And we just sat around and played cards. And we start to talk about different things that they did. And I realized we don't talk about it. And it really made me feel for them. But one of the stories that my dad said was that they had to go to my uncle's house to take the meat from the freezer. The electricity cut out in the whole country. And they needed to go take the meat from the freezer because there was no more food. Now, this for a start, there's no more food and you don't know if you can go to the supermarket, and some of the supermarkets were still open, some of the supermarkets were not open, but you didn't know when you were going to get food, and we needed to go and get all this meat. I say we. So my dad and my uncle went. I'm just thinking, like, what was my mother thinking? You know, take the car and you go, and there's Iraqi checkpoints. You don't know what they're going to do to you. I think they went to go and get us food, you know? And the place was like 40 minutes away. The Iraqi guy asked us for some of the meat. He wanted to see where the meat was, and they took the meat from the back of the car. And I mean, these are stories now, but at the time they were real experiences, you know? So, yeah, I think about everyone's individual stories, and they make me realize that, well, everyone is really going through a lot, you know? Everyone's got lots of feelings around what happened.
الكويت بلاد عز ودار صيت، نالت الأمجاد من طيب الفعول. في ظلال إخوان مريم قد دعيت، جعل خيرك شمس ما تقبل تزول. كل منه حل فيها قال ليت، نوخت فيها بجدان الذلول. والوفا فيهم وراثة كل بيت، والقصايد ما وفت مهما نقول. والخليجي بيته الثاني الكويت، ما ذخر وقته ولا يمكن يحول. ودامني فوق البسيطة ما فنيت، خالص التبريك مني كل حول.
The way that this therapist, his name is Darren Timms, he's incredible. Everyone should get therapy from Darren. What an amazing guy. What an amazing guy. And he just so kindly and so gently and so compassionately said, so take fucking responsibility. Take responsibility. You don't like it? Change it. And because the way that he held me and the way that he really was so loving in these sessions, and he really held up a mirror for me to look at myself, I realized, oh my God, I can take responsibility. And suddenly it wasn't scary. It was like, it's all my fault. The good and the bad. And this was so fucking liberating for me. And some people might think that that's harsh, but it's been for me like unlocking everything. And the way that I talk to myself, feeling really harsh, feeling really good, now I can do both things. I can be real with myself and I can really celebrate myself because I'm the only person that matters in my story. And I say that not because I'm selfish. And I don't say that because I don't give a shit about other people. But the only person that's going to move the needle, the only person that's going to make the change, the only person that is responsible, that is going to show up for me is me. And that isn't scary. That is so fucking liberating. It's not hyper independence. It's not giving a shit about others. It is actually understanding the power that you have to create a reality that you desire to live in simply by being the version of you that you know inside is honest and authentic and supports these visions and dreams that you have for yourself. You have an ability to do that. The choice is always, always, always yours. You have a choice, always. And therapy helped me see that. The techniques that were used really changed the way that I spoke to myself. And that was really a key, the way that I talked to myself. And then I thought, God, everyone should feel like this. Everyone needs to know that everyone's walking around with a mask on. Like, not just one of these COVID masks, but like with something over their eyes, like an eye mask. Like, open it up and see how much room you have. It got me really excited to share that with other people. And my therapist was also a coach. And then he said to me, I think you would be really good at this. Have you ever thought about? And I was like, who would want to do any coaching with me? I'm a mess. You know, I'm disorganized. I'm a procrastinator. You
are perfect.
Yeah, I'm disorganized. I'm a procrastinator. I party too much. I don't have a good lifestyle. You know, I have a belly and cellulite and an attitude problem, and I swear a lot. Like, no one's gonna look at me and think, oh, that's a coach. And he was like, it's not about that. And so it took me a long time to warm up to that. And I ended up getting the same certification that he had as a coach. And it was wonderful. Really, really, really wonderful. But I was actually coaching before that, as I was racking up my hours for the coaching certification. I was coaching before that, and I thought, this is really wonderful. This is really impactful. This is really great to help people find freedom in their minds and find freedom in their lives simply by changing the way that they talk to themselves and understanding that things that you have always believed about yourself have been formed by the stories that others have told you. And quite often during your childhood, when you didn't have the part of your brain to differentiate between lies and logic, that part of your brain physically has not yet developed. And so all these stories that you've heard about yourself, some of them good and some of them bad, right? There's so many broken stories that we accept and absorb as children, and they define the way that we grow up. And then you get to a point where you are sick of those stories. And when you start to question why, the answer is so simple. Because you just didn't know. You didn't know that this was somebody else's opinion of you. And as a child, you accepted it and absorbed it. And you grew up into an adult that was just constantly reliving these stories over and over again. And then when you realize that you can break apart the story from the reality and the child from the adult, I mean, this is fucking liberation. You realize that your opinion of me is just your opinion. And it's also your opinion formed by the stories of others. So what's your original thought, man? What's an original thought in your brain? You know what I mean? Mm. And this blew my mind. And I was like, I need to tell everybody. And seeing where am I reacting or am I responding? Am I reenacting? Am I faced with a situation that seems similar to another situation that I've experienced in the past, and that's bringing up how I'm reacting, which is just reenacting. I'm just doing the actions over and over again without thinking, because I'm just defaulting to a cycle that my brain and my body already recognize, and they can predict the pattern. And your brain is designed to keep you safe. It's not designed to keep you happy. And your brain will pick the pattern and pick the cycle that you can predict the outcome of, even if that's not an outcome or a prediction that you particularly like or that is good for you. But at least you know it, because there is safety in the prediction. And when you let go of this perceived safety, because the safety is only perceived, right? When you find the right tools, that can be through therapy or through self-exploration, or even through an experience or something that changes your mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be linked to paying somebody for therapy, okay? You can get there also on your own if the conditions are right. But when you start to respond, and response means responsibility, right? If you break down the word responsibility, it's the ability to respond. And an ability is something that you train yourself, right? You learn how to ride a bike, and you learn how to ride a bike quickly, and you learn how to ice skate, and you learn how to roll. You learn how to, these are abilities that you learn. And responding in the very same way is an ability that you learn how to do. You train yourself to see, when am I, this is a wound that is triggered and I'm reacting the same way. Okay, the second time that comes around, I have a choice. I can react or I can respond. And that's liberation. That's freedom, because you're not attached to these stories that were attached to you like stickers on you, like labels on you as a child. And every time you respond, you take one off,
I completely know. I just need to say that it can be difficult. Mm-hmm. It's very liberating, of course, but it can be really painful also. And I think, of course, as a therapist, I think it's important to be accompanied into some works, especially deep works, because sometimes if you do the job alone, of course you can do a lot alone, but sometimes you can go on a path which is a mental path and not the path from the heart, for example, if I want to be simple. So you will follow a way which in fact is a lie and is not good for you. So it's important to have a mentor, someone to guide you.
I hear you. I think what I wanted to say with that was that you can arrive to this realization alone, right? It's not always that you arrive to it with somebody. But I agree with you that when it is painful, and it often is, because rediscovering yourself outside of the stories that have been your identity for your whole life isn't easy. Liberation isn't necessarily easy, for example. Ask anybody that, has done any kind of inner work, or the liberation of anything doesn't come without some struggle, right? We know this. It's true in a human sense, in a political sense, in a warfare sense. Liberation is the result of struggle. And the same thing comes with personal discovery. I think the human element, the heart element that you're talking about, and why it's important to accompany others on their own discoveries of themselves and their own uncovering of who they really are, is because we are born to witness one another. We are born to see one another grow. I mean, this is the intangible human aspect of why people like you and I and people that are interested in listening to things like this go into service of others. Because I can't define it. It's not in a textbook. It's not in a coaching certificate. It's not in a therapist's office. It's, those conversations that I'm having with the guys in the creative team, that it's not your work, it's not you, it's the way this person has seen this. These healing conversations, they happen in a lot of places because we need to witness each other. And often, and I think almost always.
And I will add that we also need each other to reveal our wounds, our belief.
Yeah. And pain sometimes doesn't need advice. For you to work through pain and wounds, and sometimes you need a witness, just a witness. And when we accompany other people, yes, maybe we have a lot of wisdom and knowledge and techniques even to share. But ultimately, what we're looking for is the witness. Please see my pain. Please see how sad I am. Please celebrate me. The unpleasant emotions, sometimes we don't have words for them. We have sensation, we have feelings, but we don't articulate them verbally. Not with ourselves also. We just know that this feeling comes when something like this happens and I can feel it in my body. And sometimes we don't have a name for that. And this is where somatic practice comes in, going deeper than what is intellectually easy to kind of process. Things that don't happen verbally, things that don't happen through talk therapy or through life coaching, things that happen within your personal story of your body. And that's why people like you exist and can guide women through a more somatic practice, or understanding that the body also needs to express, which is something that I really love also. Really love to explore as well, because it's surprising, and it's also completely the other end of if we don't talk a lot about ourselves, well, we're definitely not dancing our way out of problems, are we? I mean, it's so taboo still to use your body to express. And that's also very liberating, very confrontational, but also very liberating. And very emotional also sometimes.
Absolutely, of course, I believe that the body carry also wounds, words that cannot be expressed by words, because as you said, sometimes you even know how to say it. You just feel it in my stomach, in my shoulders, but I don't know how to say it. I don't have the vocabulary. But it's what you do also, because I know you, you are my dear friend. I know you are a great dancer also. So unconsciously you were doing it already, liberating yourself, your body, expressing through your body.
I mean, I've always thank you very much for saying I'm a great dancer. I don't know if I'm a great dancer, but I love to dance.
It's very true.
Thank you. I love to dance, and I've always loved to dance. And I realized, when I was in up until I left Kuwait, up until I was 18, when I was at home, if I was ever upset, or if I ever had an argument with my parents, or I had a bad day at school, I would lock myself in my room and I would dance. And sometimes I would play the same song over and over again if I liked one song, and I would dance and dance and dance, sometimes in front of the mirror, sometimes with the lights off, and then I would feel better again. And when I went to university, this was my go-to kind of therapy. Like, I need to dance now. I have to dance. And when I was a kid as well, I used to be like, we need to, stop whatever we're doing. If we're playing, I need to go dance for 5 minutes and come back. And this was something that I did as a kid all the time. But I realized when I went to university and I was sharing my halls of residence with other people that they might think I'm a bit weird, that I'm just in my room with the same song playing over and over again, quite loud for an hour and a half. And so I kind of stopped doing it, stopped dancing alone in my room. And I didn't realize at the time that it was kind of like an embodiment practice and the way that I express things. And I brought it back a few years ago into my life. I dance in front of the mirror in the mornings. Sometimes it used to make me late for work, but I didn't care because I would be in such a good mood. And it's a wonderful way to connect with yourself and to, it's very primal.
It's funny how sometimes some people, we all have a kind of gift we are born with. It's funny how instinctively we do things like dancing to regulate the nervous system, for example, even if you don't know that you are doing it. And it makes me feel about shaking, you know, this practice. So you shake, you tremble your body. I've got some friends that learn shaking with me or with someone else, and they told me that's funny, I was doing it before I learned to do it, you know. I learned it as a practice, emotional regulating practice, but I was doing it already. So there is a lot of things, we know it, and especially our body know how to do it.
You see these videos on like Instagram or YouTube, like babies dancing, like they just put a music and the baby starts bobbing up and down like this because that's instinctual. The baby knows how to move its body, it hears the music and it knows it's a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
This is primal, you know? But it's so funny that you say that.
It's a mammal thing, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Because animals do it. We
Yeah.
know that when they escape from the predator, we know that they have 5-10 minutes, they shake, and then hop, they go back. And they
regulate and
khalas.
move. Yeah. I love that.
So you became a certified coach. What called you to guide others women?
My excitement about how good life can be when you take responsibility. And then, I was coaching and I love the way that the brain works. I thought that was, for me, a really key piece, the science behind why we do what we do, which I think is really interesting, and I'm fascinated by that generally, and the deeper meaning that it can have. But I also felt like with traditional life coaching, or the kind of the structured ways that we ask certain lines of questioning, etc., there was something in it that was missing for me. And that element was more feminine, this missing element, it was more feminine and it was more intuitive. And I didn't feel that there was a lot of place for that in traditional coaching. It was very much kind of black and white, client, coach. They have a problem, you help them solve it, achievements, goals, etc. And that's great, by the way. The structure is necessary, but it's not all that there is, like the body part that we're talking about, this part about the somatics. This is not really there unless it's a separate certification, and I came to understand that as a woman, I also needed to know about the other technologies within my body and within my reality, and one of those is the menstrual cycle, and probably the most important. And this, for me, was like the missing piece in the way that I was able to communicate with myself. It was like a language that I was fluent in, but nobody told me that I could speak this language. And when I recognized that, wow, this actually defines everything as well. It defines Like my brain plugs into my menstrual cycle, not the other way around, you know, because all this, the lovely structural science around our behaviors and our thought patterns. For women, we have another layer, and that's the way that our menstrual cycle affects hormones, moods, energy levels, the ability to deal with our inner world, the capacity that we have for ourselves and for others. All of this is determined by your cycle. And I realized that like there's not a lot of information out there about that, or even if there is, it's not being taught to us when we need it, which is when we're younger, so that we grow up knowing it. And the rebel in me, you know, this anti-system, like let me get out of this system that's not working for me, started to see more cracks in the system because I was not being taught about this. I was having to discover all of this at 30 or 32 or whatever. Why was this not taught to me in school? And I became angry about it. And a very typical kind of like angry feminist, you know, like we should know all of this stuff. We're not been taught all of this stuff. And then when the anger went, it became more like, okay, now I have an opportunity to share this with other women and make coaching and guidance and support more loving and more understandable through the lens of the menstrual cycle. So it's not all just about goals and it's about achievements. It's about, okay, how do you want to feel? And how can you connect back to this rhythm that is already within you, because it's from Mother Nature, it's from God, it's from the being that made your body, it's from your mum, it's from your lineage. How can you connect to that so that you can more support yourself? And this made me see lots of cracks. All the cracks in capitalism and all the cracks in the colonial look at women, at the patriarchal society that we live in. It made me realize, wow, it's actively disengaging women from their cycle. And this, you know, this really speaks to this rebel part in me, you know? So the cycle for me is the missing part, and it's also, it's the fire that fuels my rebellion, you know?
Absolutely, it's a kind of a key or a piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
Especially for women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huge.
Of knowledge.
Yeah. It's
of
huge.
their own femininity.
You know, 9 to 5, the 9 to 5 job, the fact that we work 8 hours a day and we have 8 hours for sleep and we have 8 hours for recreation, that structure is designed by an Australian man. In the 20s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember his name now. But that was designed by a man. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we'll come to why it's ridiculous in a minute. But let me give you something a little bit interesting. The industrialized age, you know, before the Industrial Revolution, before the industrialization of modern nations, people lived by the seasons and people lived from the land. People were self-reliant in a way that we only really see now in what we want to call in the privileged countries, developing nations, or if you're a real asshole, you'll call it a third world country, which is also a bullshit term, also made up by Westerners. But the concept of running like a machine has damaged the balance that we had before. So before, men and women lived seasonally. So maybe you worked like crazy during the summer and the spring and harvesting in the autumn, but you rested in the winter. Or similarly, if you lived somewhere where there wasn't 4 seasons, you did a lot in the dry season and you did not a lot during the rainy season, right? And a lot of that work would have been to do with the land. Even if you weren't doing things directly related to farming, maybe you made bricks, maybe you repaired bicycles, maybe you made things, but you would typically tend to do a lot of those things when the sun was out and when you had long hours of sunlight. And in the winter, you would keep either the money that you had made, or you would keep the food that you had produced, and you would sustain yourself.
Absolutely.
And you would do it again.
Just because, as you said, because of electricity also.
And also electricity.
Because when it's dark, it's dark.
When it's dark, it's dark.
The work, yeah.
Yeah, and when you travel to places where perhaps they're not as industrialized, and they still have people jobs, and it's a more rural area, you notice the day starts at 5 a.m. and it finishes when the sun goes down. That's it. And people go to bed at 8 o'clock and they're up again at 5. What happened particularly for women in the age of the Industrial Revolution, when people were going to factories and people were going to work with machines, the machine is working all the time. You can't take a day off. And you need to be there to do whatever is the job, either put the thing in the machine or pull it out or be there fixing it or sewing or whatever, making sandbags, whatever it is. A woman couldn't take a day off then. I mean, you're talking about like masses and masses, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that are unskilled workers, unskilled labor. They've come from the farms, they've left the farms, they've gone to the city to find a job. And this happened France, this definitely happened in Scotland. It's happened in the United States, happened all over Europe. People left el campo, no? Le campagne, right? Mm-hmm. Leave it behind and go to the big city and find a job in a factory. Okay, everybody knows this story. And what happens when they're in the factory? You're paid by the day if you're an unskilled laborer. So women, that they've come from a lineage of resting in the winter and in their own personal winter, right? Which is the menstruation. If you take that and you go into a factory and you're being paid day by day, you can't take a day off because your period is there or you're tired or you're bleeding. Because you miss a day, you miss the money. And now you're linked not to how many carrots you grow or potatoes that you can store for the winter, but how much money so that you can go to the market now and buy that same thing. So you have to work through your period. You have to go against the balance because the system is kind of forcing you to do that. So the seasons get replaced with machines. A machine that doesn't care whether it's raining or sunny or whatever outside. And your system has to match that. And now we see that in a corporate setting where now not only do we have to match the system, but we have to match that energy. We have to be masculine, we have to be bold, we can't be soft, you can't be empathetic. You know, these are weaknesses. This is not how you'll get ahead. And reconnecting to your menstrual cycle isn't some witchy, far away thing that only hippies do. It is your birthright to have a rest when you are tired. And the system is making you forget that. And when you remember that, and when you realize that there is cracks in the system, and it is not what they told you it is, this is so empowering. Because you realize not only is it all bullshit, but I can also decide what I want to do, you know?
Amen. Why are retreats, circles, and in general sacred spaces so important to you?
I think you said it earlier about being seen. Being seen and having a chance to become friends with your vulnerability and to see what's on the other side of vulnerability. Women gather in circle, sometimes we do it unintentionally. If you think about the way that we used to gather as little girls on the patio at school or in the playground, we sit in a circle. But I think that intentional settings, women are very good at that. Women make alliances by sharing. Now, sometimes that can be, when it's bad, negative, we call it gossip. But that's still alliances, by the way. I tell you a secret, you tell me a secret, now we have something. Right? But imagine if it's not a gossip. Imagine if it's my desire. Imagine if it's my pain. How much stronger that bond is then between me and you. And how supported and seen that I felt and that I feel when you know something about me and I trust you with it. When women sit in circle and when women come together, and it doesn't always have to be this big ceremony. It can be the conversation that you and I are having now, or a really intense conversation. I'm sure all the women that listen to that or to this conversation have a memory like, oh yeah, we talk for hours. We just talk for hours together and she really understands me. Making space for this intangible thing that women have of trust and support, and doing it with intentionality can really reset the balance for us. You know, that there is deeper meaning to communication and friendships and love and support. In fact, almost all women have this sense of, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And that is really heartbreaking. Or I'm afraid to be too much. Those two things. Or they don't want to cry because they don't want to show their weakness, as if somehow that's a sign that you're less than or not worthy, you know. So I create immersive women's retreats. And my retreats are a little bit different because I like to see the deep work that we do, this inner work, as something pleasurable, even if it can be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. And I like to see the real work, the deep work, through the lens of travel. I believe in travel as medicine. When you take yourself out of your routine and you put yourself in a different place, that you are able to experience yourself and your thoughts and your kind of interactions. You see them with different eyes. And this is very educational. And so I take women on retreats all around the world. Beautiful retreats that blend this personal transformation element through group circles and one-to-one coaching, spiritual practices, somatic practices, movement, together with culture, community integration, cultural experiences, community experiences, sisterhood, nature, being in nature together, in a beautiful, gorgeous, luxurious international setting. Because I believe in beauty for women, I believe in comfort for women, I believe in creating incredible experiences for women. It brings me a lot of joy, because I believe that when you are relaxed as a woman, and when you are well rested and well fed and feeling good, then you can access parts of you that would like to see some more light. And I create spaces for women to find that in themselves and also have a great time as well. So every detail is taken care of for you. And so when I create these settings, I do it with the same love and intention that I would do if it was my best friend's birthday. I want you to feel that you're really taken care of from the minute that you land. And then, of course, because there's always themes around the retreats, right? So we're working towards the reason that you've decided to come. So maybe you are looking for a way to express yourself through your body. Maybe it's looking to embody more feminine elements. Maybe you just want to get out of your comfort zone. Maybe you are looking to reconnect with yourself or create a deeper spiritual practice. Inside the circles and inside the one-to-one sessions which are available to you, you can do that deep work, and you can also feel really rested and really supported in a beautiful setting, of course, but also really to understand that these experiences are to enrich you, and to enrich you with all of your senses. You know, how you see this beautiful place that we're staying, how you nourish yourself with food, what the food tastes like, really able to immerse yourself in a wellness experience rather than just mental or just physical. And
what is your next retreat?
My next retreat will be in Mexico, in Tulum, Mexico, in a beautiful, incredible space in the jungle about 20 kilometers outside of Tulum. It's going to be from November 30th till December 5th. It's called Roots Retreat. It's all about coming back to your essence, really about quieting out the noise of the hustle and the hassle of the 9 to 5, your work, the grind, the system, and really coming back and rooting into who you really feel that you are beneath all of that noise.
And how we can contact you?
So I'm on Instagram at the Soulful Coach, which I'm sure will be in the footnotes.
I will put everything in the description, of course.
And my website is www.soulful-retreats.net, which Jenna will very kindly also share. And if you can't remember any of that or you don't see it, you can also message Jenna and just get in touch with me directly, and I'll make sure if you come through Jenna that there will be a special offer waiting for you.
So if there is a woman who is listening us now, and she's right now the Alyah of 4, 5, 6 years ago, what would you say to her or to you?
What you're going to do is going to make you very happy and going to make others very happy too. And it's not a crazy dream. It's absolutely possible, and it's important. Yeah, you've got it in you.
Thank you. I breathe inside of you and inside of what you said.
Thank you, Jenna. You always help me with the way that you look at me when we talk is always so present and allows me to, you give me space. It really allows me to kind of go those places inside and articulate myself in ways that I don't do with everyone. And you have a lot of patience with me, and I know that with everyone that you meet, but for me I feel very special to receive your form of space holding and to be with you. I'm very lucky, very blessed to be your friend. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.